and I hope you're doing well today. Come find me on Instagram when you have a chance, but today we are going to talk about my collaboration with Monroe Heritage on these beautiful welted wear and Monroe 5-eyelet Moctoe derbies, also known as the Link Moctoe Derby. Here are a few views of this beautiful shoe that echoes some of the themes of the famous Taylorian Paraboot Chambord and Weston golf models coming out of France. I loved these boots and fell in love thanks to the words of Ben Robinson and his Stitch Down podcast, which I just think is a fantastic place to listen to and learn about shoes. But I always found the shoes to be slightly, a little boring, not up to date with current designs. And so I wanted to design my own version. I wanted to show you these designs of the Paraboot Chambord, which you can see has a sweeping side panel with double rows of stitching heading from the facing into the heel counter with the 5-eyelet design and a raised Moctoe with a Norwegian welt. And then similarly, a really stylish, updated version of the Weston Golf done in collaboration with Uniform. And these are photos taken from that collaboration, which shows a beautiful welt design. Again, that double layer of stitching along the side paneling. So I took that and decided to modify that idea. Again, keeping the concept of a 5-eyelet derby with an apron stitched Moctoe or a moccasin toe. You can see I wanted a raised moccasin with a stitch box to lock the moccasin stitch into the facing. I wanted more intricate side panel stitching as well as a veldtshoen construction to try to bring the stitch of the welt to the rest of the upper. And you can see the initial effort here by Iwan Faisal Bustomi and his team at Monroe when we were mocking up this design. There are some differences here. Initially, our initial design came with a double row of stitching, very much in concert with what we see from Weston and Paraboot, but a clean heel counter. And I suggested adding a third row of stitching at this point to the front facing as it blended to the heel counter to provide more of an aggressive swoop. And so that's what you see here in the drawing that I did to update and provide sharing knowledge. Initially, the joint that we used to stitch together the side paneling and the heel counter was a little bit awkward. It just didn't feel quite right. So we worked on that, and we came up with this beautiful interlocking design, which I just think is what makes the shoe and what makes the side paneling so elegant. Once we got through that design, I really wanted to find a better way to echo the apron stitch and this peaked design that you see in the Weston, which I think is part of what makes it iconic. And while I love the welt design on the collaborative effort with Uniform as well as the Norwegian welt of the Paraboot, I just didn't find that sufficient. And so we went with this veldtshoen construction, and you see the model here in its entirety, shined up for good effort. Another take on this beautiful style here in nature. I was able to take the shoes out and do a little photo shoot, and you can see how aesthetically pleasing this shoe is. You can see how the welt stitching, the stitching on the apron, and the stitching on the uppers all flow so beautifully together. Here's another view of that triple layer of side panel and heel counter stitching. A more close-up view of the locking stitch as well as the facing stitching, which really is done so cleanly by Monroe. The final design of the side panel stitching and lock stitch you can see here. You can see how clean Monroe does their upper stitching. Everything is done so consistently, and the interlocking design worked so well so that nothing was sticking out awkwardly or not flowing. Also loved how the paneling on the triple layer stitches ends essentially where the 270-degree veldtshoen design is done. Here's a picture of the apron. You can see a slight cut was made along the top of the apron. This is something that Paraboot does, and it really adds to the aesthetic and the dimensionality of the apron, which I really loved and we decided to go for. You can see the stitching on the apron and the stitching in the welt echo each other in terms of stitch density, which was something I wanted, so that we have a higher stitch density on the apron that essentially echoes the stitch density you can see on the double row stitching of the veldtshoen welt up front. And it really lends itself to a beautiful synchronous appearance to the front of the shoe. The strong side element also sweeps into this beautiful 270-degree veldtshoen welt. You can see how beautiful the stitching is done in this particular image here. We get so close that we can see the pores on the leather. And then here's the heel counter stitch, the double row of stitching intersecting with the triple row on the side panel, and the locking stitch to secure the apron in place with the facing. I just think that this swoop really does everything for the shoe, along with the apron and the combination of the veldtshoen welt. It all comes together nicely, and you can see that here. There's a beautiful flow to the shoe, which was something I was really hoping to achieve and did not see in a more modern aesthetic of today's boots and shoes, and I had not seen in one of the Indonesian bootmakers' offerings. And so I'm excited about this beautiful shoe. I think it's very wonderfully done. I think it can be worn in the office, boardroom, or out in the country, or out on the city. It's a shoe for all times and all purposes. Certainly a little bit more casual thanks to its boot heritage. Monroe did an amazing job. That's all I can really say, is that they did this within 3 months from design to on my feet. That's from start to finish. You can see my happy feet here, having already put the shoes on and worn them. I'm thrilled with what I've seen, and I couldn't be happier. So again, one last view of the design and its execution for reality.